everybody. Welcome back to The Beard and the Bald. I am Paul Shirey the Beard, joined by my compatriot, the Bald, Christopher Bumbray. Christopher, how are you,
Well,
sir?
hello. Hi, everyone. Hi, everybody. Hi, Dr. Nick.
Everybody, welcome to the show. Man. So how's your week been, Chris?
It's been okay. We had a bit of I always find at the beginning of the summertime, I go through like a weird, I don't know, hormonal thing or something like that, where I start, because I'm usually very busy during the year, right? Like I usually end up, I have Joe Blow, but I also do a bit of teaching on the side, a lot of freelancing. And I was very busy like the first half of the week, but then all of a sudden I got everything done. And it was like, oh, fuck. And then it's like, so, I'm still really busy with Joe Blow and stuff, but you know how the job is. It feels like you're never working, but also always working, so it's like, so it's one of those things. So I kind of, and especially working at home, it kind of gets a little bit alienating at times.
Absolutely, it does. Absolutely, it does.
But it's just about basically finding new things to do. Like I need to start probably hitting the gym more, because there's a gym right by me. I can actually go out and do it now in person, which is, so things like that. Just readjusting to a different schedule.
Yeah, I've been working from home for 10 years now.
Yeah. I see it's different for me. Like it's really, I'm not used to, I should be used to it because it's been like 2 years, but it's just like before that, I was always in offices and stuff. Yeah. So
I find the biggest adjustment is the lack of kind of social interaction.
Yeah.
And, I talk about that.
I socialize with Laura, who, when she gets home,
I socialize with the person in my home.
And I socialize with my cat.
Well, I don't have a dog anymore, so I don't have anything.
What do you think, Hercules? And he just kind of turns his head away.
Like, that's not the response I was looking for.
No.
Yeah, I find that, sometimes it's a little frustrating because like I'm getting married in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And like my friends, people that I know that I'm close with, live all over the United States and in Canada and like in other places.
Yeah. So what are you guys doing for your wedding anyway?
We're just gonna basically do like an elopement with our kids.
Yeah.
Here in Alaska, and
sure.
It's gonna be like a small thing. We're gonna go to Beluga Point, which is this really pretty place off the coast.
Oh, nice.
Turnagain Arm Trail. Just a really beautiful place. We got a photographer and all that other stuff, so it'll be cool. But like I don't have like hardly any of my friends live in Alaska anymore because like
Sure.
I'm up here for the military.
Mm-hmm.
And then I made, tons of friends in the military, but like that's military. What happens is they get stationed to other places. So everybody moves and I'm the only, jackass still here in Alaska. So like all of my friends are like just scattered all over the place. And like coming to Alaska is an expensive endeavor, So that's why we're kind of just doing this small thing because it's just like we can't really round everybody up. It's just very difficult. So that goes back just, when you work in a job, when you're working with people that live all over and you become friends with them, it's like, shit, all my friends, all my acquaintances, all the people that I would invite are like all over the place. So it's impossible. Sure. And I find that it's the same kind of thing. I know you have friends in Montreal that
not as many as I used to though. Like that's the thing. Like it really is kind of one of those things. It's two-pronged, it is one of those things you lose track of people and people move and people go all over the world and you become closer with people that are, in other regions, like you in Alaska. And I think of friends of mine in LA and then also, I think COVID was a thing too, where you lose this whole class of like casual acquaintances that you used to have, that you used to go drinking with, And it was funny because yesterday I went drinking with a friend of mine and we ran into a bunch of people that we were like formerly like acquaintances with. And it was weird at first.
I used to
like, you. Do I say hi to them? Do I not? And then we did, and it was nice, and everybody kind of like and it was like old times kind of. But it's like it's weird. Like you lose that whole. It used to be one of those things. You go out drinking at a bar, you run into some people. Yeah, it's cool, But I feel like with COVID, you almost and it was funny. I was talking to this woman who was telling me who has kids, and she was like, even socializing with the other parents because it felt like for a while like it was something you weren't really allowed to do. Right. So now it's like, it's just this weird thing, but I think people are kind of getting back into it and it was nice being out yesterday, but yeah, I drank a lot though. I drank a lot and I didn't get really drunk, which is weird, but I was drinking.
You have to tell me later about why you were drinking.
Oh yeah. Whatever. I was drinking as a summer. Because it's Saturday. But anyway, it was, yeah.
I feel that. Today is also a very special day. I give a shout out to my son, who is turning 13 today.
13. Wow.
I'm now the father of a teenager, which is.
I remember my 13th birthday. My 13th birthday was big because I remember I had a sleepover with some friends and we watched. It was the first time I ever saw Enter the Dragon.
Oh, really? Wow, that's an interesting.
We watched 2 movies that night, and the first one was so forgettable. It was that movie, Greedy, with Michael J. Fox.
Oh, I love Greedy. I actually love Greedy. Yeah. It's like,
but it was like that was great, so unceremonious. But then we put on Enter the Dragon next, and it was like this mind-blowing moment in my life that kicked off this obsession. I went in, a week later, I was registering for karate classes and stuff like that, and I watched that movie. I watched that movie about 1,000 times that year. I bought the VHS and wore it out. I was watching it all the time. Yeah, and I remember my 13th birthday. It was also just the day after. It was the first time I went to a movie with just my friends by ourselves. We went to see The Specialist.
Oh God!
We felt like we were getting away with something because of all the nudity. So yeah.
God, that was weak ass nudity too. That's such a bad movie.
Yeah.
It's so bad. I remember, what I always
the nudity was Stallone's.
So whenever I think of the Specialist, I think about the director, Luis something.
Luis Aloza.
Yeah. And his story about how he was able to direct The Specialist is he was like a janitor. He was just he started as this cleaning guy, and he was and I just, worked around sets, and I was a janitor, and then they just let me direct a movie. And I was you gave a janitor the job to direct a movie? What the fuck?
That's why the job. I didn't think it was that bad. It was one of those movies though where James Woods kind of walked away with the movie though. I remember even as a kid being the biggest Stallone fan, I was James Woods is kind of taking this movie over.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love James Woods. I love James Woods today. I mean, he's, definitely an ultra conservative kind of crazy.
I'm not a fan. I have. It's weird. I have an affection for him. Politically, I could not be more different than him, but I do have.
Yeah. I mean, he's extreme politically, but I think almost I
think he's kind of a scumbag. But even still, though, I do have a certain affection for him. Yeah. I felt
Salvador is one of my favorite movies. I
felt if I met him, I'd have a good time hanging out with him, and he'd have amazing stories.
I think that you would. I think that James Wood is he's an extreme personality. But I think, if you hung out with him, you had a drink with him, he would probably have so many stories. And you'd be
probably similar to Robert Davi, who's also super conservative. Who I couldn't be more different with politically, but I feel he'd be interesting to talk to. But the thing about Woods though is he, when I think of him. He is in some of my favorite movies, like Salvador. I love him in The Hard Way. I thought The Hard Way.
Oh, yeah, The Hard Way is great. I love The Hard Way. Yeah. It's an awesome. That's actually a legit fucking cool movie.
Oh, yeah.
Michael J. Fox is great in that as well.
Michael J. Fox is really good in that movie. I always thought Michael J. Fox was totally underrated. He was really good in that. The funny thing that I read about The Hard Way is that apparently James Wood said it was his greatest acting challenge. Because the whole movie he had to pretend to be annoyed with Michael J. Fox, but he said that he found him so endearing and likable that it was different.
He's Michael J. Fox. I don't see how you just love Michael J. Fox. If I met Michael J. Fox, that would be a legit starstruck moment.
I had a friend who met him, and J. Fox told him to fuck off. He was having a bad day. It's oh shit. Yeah, he told him to fuck off. I think he was having a bad day.
Dude. But I mean, someone like Michael J. Fox probably has gotten that his entire life.
Oh, yeah.
You can't, at that point, to you as a fan, you're oh my God, it's Michael J. Fox.
A guy can have a bad day too, I mean.
But for him, it's he's probably had that shit so fucking much that it's
well, no, way
you're going to please everyone. And eventually someone's going to get a fuck off.
Yeah. Marty,
fuck off. Smack you right in the mouth. So speaking of, kind of legendary actors, we lost a great one this week. We lost Fred Ward, sadly, who I think a lot of people may not actually know who he is. But for us, we kind of grew up with Fred Ward, especially with Tremors. It's weird. When I was thinking about it, I was is Tremors his best movie? And it might be. Tremors might be Fred Ward's best movie. Now he's great in The Right Stuff. He's great in Remo Williams. He's great in The Player. He's great in a lot of different movies, but I don't know, man. When I think about Fred Ward, I think about him and Kevin Bacon in Tremors, which I think is legit an outstanding movie. I love it. The first Tremors, mind you. And I think that might actually be his best movie, which is not a bad thing at all. And it's like, it's surprising because this is someone that worked from the early 70s. All to his last movie was in 2016. And
yeah, he was in, it was Two Guns.
Yeah. I think, was he like a cop or a villain? I can't remember.
I don't remember that movie either, but I remember him as Colin Farrell's father in True Detective.
No, that's what it was. That was his last project. It was True Detective. He was Colin Farrell's dad. But, you know, Fred Ward was just, he had such a unique presence. You know, it was like this kind of like rough and tumble kind of guy, like kind of like this gruff voice. And he had like a great humor to him as well. And, you know, I think he left a great impression on, you know, the legacy of Hollywood. So it was, you know, it was a good, he had a great run. And I always say that about, you know, when these people pass, you know, rather than like be like, oh my God, this is so tragic. I'm like, dude, he's fucking 79 or 80. Like, he had a good run. Like, that's a good life. Like,
he's been gone for the last couple of years too. I mean, who knows what he's been up to, but it's interesting to watch, you know, Remo Williams too, though. Like, it's funny because I just watched it a few weeks ago, and he was, you know, he was already in his 40s when he did that movie for the 80s.
Yeah.
Like, if you watch him in the film, he's doing a lot of his own stunts and stuff. And he was, you know, he was like, it's too bad, like, because I feel like it could have been a franchise, but it was just like a near miss.
Yeah. And I loved it as a kid too. I remember like,
I loved it as a kid. Yeah.
My mom rented. So when I was a kid, like younger, you know, my mom would just go to the video store and just rent shit for us. And she didn't know shit about movies. She would just go and ask them what to get. And she would bring movies home for us to watch. And we'd never know. She'd be like, here's this movie. Like, and that's how we ended up watching Remo Williams.
Well, I mean, Remo Williams
no idea.
VHS cover too. Like, it's just him hanging from the statue.
Yeah, hanging.
Like that. And it's like, wow, okay, I'm definitely going to watch this movie.
Yeah. And I remember loving it. I haven't seen it in, oh my God, probably.
I just watched it a couple of weeks ago, actually, because it showed up on TV. Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've watched Remo Williams.
It's really cool because there's that scene where, because at the time the Statue of Liberty was undergoing renovations, and they had the scaffolding around it, and they used that in the movie, like hanging off of it and stuff, and that was really cool.
It's the way to do it.
Yeah. But I remember him like also in Silkwood, The Right Stuff. You know, he was part Cherokee too. He had that really cool, interesting look. I Cast a Deadly Spell. I remember enjoying that a lot.
Oh yeah, Cast a Deadly Spell. That's right.
He was in the first NC-17 movie, Henry and June, with Uma Thurman. Right. Yeah, Philip Kaufman. He was Henry Miller. Yeah, wasn't allowed watching that one as a kid. But then there was, but it was like he had an interesting career, you know, and he had that really interesting look to, like that gruff kind of like gummy.
It's just like
if he'd been around in the 40s, he would have been like a big star, like a film noir star.
Yeah, he never shot to, like, I would say, like, as a lead. He was
but well regarded though.
Yeah, it's like, oh, Fred Ward's in this. You know, I love Fred Ward. You know, that's kind of the, you know, kind of the persona that he had. It was like, oh shit, Fred Ward. And he always, you know, he was always genuine. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh my God, he was like the best actor of all time. I think he probably gave his best performance in Right Stuff.
As Gus Grissom, sure.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, that's probably his best performance. Like, and that was a challenging performance for him.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot going on with Gus.
Well, he's playing a controversial figure, and also one of the few guys at the time who was dead, you know, so couldn't really weigh in on it.
Yeah. Because he died during the testing before.
Well, yeah, and that was even part of the movie. But it was, the Gus Grissom story, I think, is a complicated one because of the hatch.
For sure. The whole hatch thing. Yeah.
Open, or, you know, and I thought he did. I mean, if you look back at it too, he was treated very unfairly, you know, like, I think, considering.
Gus or Fred?
Gus Grissom.
Oh, Gus Grissom. Yeah. It's like a very kind of like, what? Yeah, it's pretty. Yes, it was a different time for NASA then, obviously, but
interesting though. I was reading about Remo Williams, and it was between Fred Ward and Ed Harris to play Remo Williams, and Fred Ward won.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I don't think it would have made much of a difference.
It would have been like with Ed Harris. Yeah,
I don't think it would have made much of a difference.
Well, I don't think it would have been a hit either way, but it was still, I like the movie and I like the way it is. And I think that Ward had a really cool sensibility about him, you know, and I
Yeah.
like him. And the action scenes are really good in that movie too. It's just, it has a very anticlimactic like third act.
Yeah.
That's the problem with it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, in the end, I think Fred Ward just said he had great charisma.
Sure.
And
Very well regarded. And I think he had a good career.
Really, truly, like, I mean,
I remember him though, one of his last movies was 30 seconds or less, and he was like, still had like a six-pack. Like, it was crazy. Like, that was the thing.
God damn it, Fred Ward. You're setting a standard none of us are going to attain.
Yeah.
Bullshit. Oh, shit. So let me see here. What else? I forgot what I put on the agenda for us today. Are you following this Netflix thing? I thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I am. You know, it's so, yeah. So basically, Netflix kind of put out this memorandum to their staff saying that we have to be careful about how we spend our subscribers' money, but also we have to support the artistic intentions of our creators. And I do like that because, you know, if it was, I think it's a very slippery slope if they start bowing and kowtowing to woke culture, because the thing is they'll start removing too much and it'll become censorship. Like, I think it would have been very bad if they had removed the Dave Chappelle special.
Yep.
You know, because then where does it stop if you keep doing that? And the thing is, these things always do play themselves out, and it's not gonna be, you know, well received afterwards if they look back and like, oh, well, they were censoring themselves.
Yeah.
You know, like,
well, and if you look at like the Chappelle special,
yeah.
If you look at the Chappelle special, the results of that, you had not even a lot of employees. You had a very small amount of employees that they blew up in the news and media as it was a huge thing. But you had enough that were like making noise that got on the news and then basically made Netflix look bad. It's a bad PR for them. When that stuff is on the news, like people protesting Dave Chappelle special. It was like 100 people, I think.
But I was glad that they stuck to their guns, though.
Absolutely, because, and here's the thing: if you remember that movie Cuties that they put out,
well, I think it would have been a mistake if they'd pulled that too. That's the thing,
right? That's what I'm going to say. Is like they defended Cuties and they left that up, right? And that pissed off a lot of people, but. Yeah. They still stuck to their guns. Now, had they caved to Chappelle, I think that would have shown their cards. And I think that consistency is key. And that is what Netflix needs more than anything. And this memo, which I am going to read, but they, you know, is setting that standard so that it's like, look, you know, we're going to put out all different types of content and it's something for everyone. But because of that, you can't please everyone all the time. Some people are going to like it. Some people are going to hate it. And so this is what they said. I want to read it just so that people have some context here. And this is from their memo that's actually on their website, on their jobs website, which says, this is under their artistic expression. It says, not everyone will like or agree with everything on our service. While every title is different, we approach them based on the same set of principles. We support the artistic expression of the creators we choose to work with. We program for a diversity of audiences and tastes. And we let viewers decide what's appropriate for them versus having Netflix censor specific artists or voices. As employees, we support the principle that Netflix offers a diversity of stories, even if we find some titles counter to our own personal values. Sure. Depending on your role, you may need to work on titles you perceive to be harmful. If you'd find it hard to support our content breadth, Netflix may not be the place for you.
Well, I mean, it makes sense because the thing is, one thing that the people need to remember is that, you know, when you're outspoken on Twitter, that is still a very small minority, you know, of people. Yeah. And, you know, they have other clients that they have to serve that are from other places besides New York and LA, you know, and you know, and there are people that want a different kind of show. And if they want to keep making money, which is what they're in for, and they want to keep subscribers, they have to please those audiences as well. Exactly. Right. And I think that a lot of people, they expect to have everything catered to them because they're used to that now. They've been trained to accept that or to expect that to some degree from Hollywood.
To like make some noise and then have somebody cancel something.
But I also think that, you know, Hollywood, you know, people that are like the auteurs and the directors and the showrunners that they really want to work with are not going to be ones that necessarily bow to you know, woke pressure or whatever. And I think that if they want to have any kind of working relationship with these people, they do have to take a stand for, you know, artistic intent. You know, I mean,
yeah. And if you don't,
the dog pissed some people off, but that's, you know, it's still one of their best movies, you know, and that's the thing, that pissed off some conservative people. But then, you know, like the Chappelle pissed off a lot of, you know, definitely not conservative people. And I think that you do need to it's like they said, not everything can please everyone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, and that's, you don't have a right to not be offended. And
No.
that's kind of the problem that's pervading society right now, is that people are thinking, hey, I'm offended and I should not be. And I'm like, who the fuck told you that? Who told you have a right to not be offended, or that you should be able to have a life where like everything that crosses your eyes pleases you? Like, welcome to real life. That's just not the way things work. So, this is a situation where I think Netflix is taking a stand, not only because of like the bad PR, but for the basic reason, money. They just took their biggest hit. They've lost hundreds of thousands of subscribers. They're expected to lose millions more in the next quarterly report. Netflix needs to do something. And you even have Elon Musk tweeting, which you could argue the merits of whatever, but dude, he's got more followers, I think, than anybody on Twitter. And he was like, Netflix making woke content is like what's hurting them. It's like,
well, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with making woke content, but I think you also have to make other kinds of content too, though. Yes. That's the thing. It needs to take into account that there's a wide variety of people that are going to watch Netflix, and it's got to be made for those, exactly. I think there's nothing wrong with going niche, but you got to kind of do that with other hit
every niche though. You got to hit, but at the same time, Netflix is also, I think there was another report that came out this week where they're talking about how Netflix has kind of become the Walmart of streaming services. And I kind of agree with that.
It is,
because they're buying up all of this shit programming that they're putting on there that nobody's watching.
They do need to have a better standard, I think, for quality.
Absolutely. I think
it's interesting because I feel like if the Gray Man flops and is not great, like it's going to be a big black eye to the company because they put so much.
Gray Man needs to be a hit. It really does. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it, but
me too. I mean, they went all in on it, but like almost too much though. Like if you look at the cast, it's like you're trying to hit every like cool, like I don't know, it seems almost overstuffed.
Well, and let's not forget that the last time Russo brothers did a streaming movie, it sucked. Cherry was not good.
No.
So hopefully the Gray Man is good and just taps into kind of their Captain America Avengers days, because that's what it needs to be. It needs to be something akin to that, and maybe it will. Hopefully it's great, but yeah, Netflix needs a win, and I think a part of their loss of subscribers too comes from the competition. HBO Max, Disney Plus, Prime Video, even Paramount Plus, all these streaming services are offering a whole lot of other content at a cheaper rate. So if Netflix is going to continue to churn out Walmart content that's pissing off, people right and left, it's going to be a problem.
Well, and also I think the thing is sometimes they're taking better risks with being more provocative. And I think that people like that sometimes, though. Like, it's funny. One of the guys I follow is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I like his Substack.
Oh, yeah.
And I like his lists of like best shows because it's always like not really what you expect from him. And like his favorite show last year was Mayor of Kingstown, and it's just like, I like that, and it's like, and that's the thing. The show is very provocative, and they take a lot of risks with it. But I think it pays off sometimes too if it comes from an honest place, like that's, and I think that's the key to why somebody like Taylor Sheridan is popular. And I think Netflix made a big mistake by not taking. If they had Taylor Sheridan now, they'd be in the
shit.
Like if Netflix
had Yellowstone, shit, they'd be a further ball game. Yeah, and you're right. Like, people want provocative content. I think that's the other thing. Like,
a lot of it is too safe on Netflix, and when they do get provocative stuff, people do go crazy because they expect to be catered to, and it's a very outspoken kind of minority sometimes that they hit, and
yep.
But you can't just bow to that all the time. You could definitely listen to the critiques, and take them into account. But I think if they had pulled the Chappelle special, it would have been a disastrous look for them.
Absolutely. And then, and I think we talked about it, but like Chappelle getting rushed on stage when he was performing.
I mean, that's scary too, though. That is, I mean.
And that's something where, somebody like Will Smith, that's a Will Smith thing, I think is a fallout from that, where like you see people rushing stages and getting press, right? And it sets a standard. And then if Netflix were to be like, oh, it didn't like take the stance that they did, I think if you don't protect the people that are making you money and you don't protect their artistic integrity, you're ultimately doomed to fail, because all your success rests on their success, and to not support them would be just a bad move. And I think Netflix is, their PR department now is kind of, they're getting the memo in that way. So it's the right move that they're making, but in the end, they're going to have to lead with good content because that's what they need more than anything.
Yeah. Speaking of cancellations, though, it's funny. CW canceled, like, it seems like almost all of their shows,
like a ridiculous amount.
Yeah.
And like, I have a list up here. I was going to bring it up. So, the originals, Legacies, Dynasty, Naomi, In the Dark, Roswell, New Mexico, Charmed, and 4400 are gone.
But they'd also canceled like Legends of.
They also Batwoman and Legends of Tomorrow also. And then, but they did renew like The Flash. They renewed a couple others. They still greenlit this Gotham Knights show that sounds fucking like the most woke bullshit fucking show I've ever heard. Like, I will never watch Gotham Knights. It sounds so awful. Like, it just sounds fucking terrible. And I hope it fails. It probably will. But what's interesting is, this is really all, it's a complicated thing, but it's also interesting because a lot of it has to do with the CW WB, so many fucking acronyms. This WB Discovery merger is a huge catalyst for this, but also the CW has just been it's never been profitable. Ever.
Well, I feel like it's not going to last very long. I feel like they're just going to fold everything into HBO Max and do streaming shows.
Well, that's the thing is HBO Max, they don't have, like, HBO Max can't continue Batwoman. They can't continue Legends of Tomorrow. It's like a rights type issue. Mm-hmm. They couldn't do it if they wanted to. Like, HBO Max couldn't take it. No. So like Nexstar, I guess, and I'm not even really familiar with Nexstar, but they're looking to purchase. They're like the front runners to purchase CW. And if they do, it's unclear what they're going to do with this shit. And I think a lot of them, they don't want to acquire a network that has all these shows that are just a bunch of low rated shit. Yeah. So I think what CW is trying to do with a lot of these cancellations is kind of like sweeten the pot and kind of cut some excess. Yeah. But interestingly, Batwoman and Legends of Tomorrow, they didn't get renewed because WB didn't want to renew the lease on the studio space. Like, It came down to a studio space. They're like, yeah, fuck those shows. We're not going to renew. We don't want to renew the lease on these fucking shows.
Well, I feel WB, like DC also, they're going to want to do their own shit, I think.
Well, that's it. Exactly. That's what I was getting to is WB and Discovery, they're divesting in CW because CW is up for sale. They don't want, like, they're trying to stay away from it. They don't want.
And it's all kind of low rent niche stuff anyway, though. So,
And that's always been CW's thing was like, hey, we're low cost programming. Like the Dynasty reboot that I didn't even realize was happening.
I didn't even know it was on the air.
It's like 4 seasons in, but I'm like, I still don't really understand the concept of how these shows make money. Now that the Netflix deal is done for CW, which was like $1 billion or something, like, and they just like gave that up. Or Netflix chose not to renew. I'm not sure which it was, but it's fascinating. It's fascinating that like terrible shows just get multiple seasons. Because my thing is like, who's watching? Who is watching these shows? I don't know. Nobody talks about Dynasty. You don't see anybody tweeting about Dynasty. So crazy.
What else? Zack Snyder Oscar bots.
So this is an interesting one as well. I want to bring the story up here. They're saying that basically there's this report, I think it started at the Wrap, that said there was a single day spike of votes because this was an online voting thing. Single day spike on February 27th that had 25,000 votes cast that represented an increase from the usual daily average between 4,000 and 15,000 votes. It said that a university professor who insists the activity accounts voting for the Snyder films, he basically is the one that like pointed this out, said it certainly does not look like they're generated by a human user. Now, I don't know the breadth of this guy's studies or how valid he is, but this is my take on it. You and I know, like most people know, that the Snyder Cut, Snyder Files, Snyder Movement however you want to label them, whether they're crazy, committed, or a combination of both, they essentially helped get the Snyder Cut released. So if you give them an online petition and you allow them, what the fuck do you think is going to happen? They'll generate bots. They'll do whatever they have to do.
I mean, I knew it was bots, and it was the same reason that Johnny Depp got the thing for Minamata, a movie that nobody's ever heard of. You know, like it is, and that was why it was such a bad idea to begin with. That whole thing,
like,
you know,
exactly. What do they think is going to happen? Like, it's kind of odd to me that many of these places even use like fan voting online, anyways. Like even the Golden Schmoes, it was the same thing, and I tabulated that shit for years, and it was like, you can see where people try to rig it. Like you can see it. And then trying to, sift through that data sometimes can be daunting, and there's definitely flaws to that, to like online voting. Cause somebody, no matter what, if you give them the option, they could try and game the system. If you give people the opportunity, they will game the fucking system 10 times out of 10. And
something else that I wanted to talk about that was interesting is, not to cut you off, but I don't know. I feel like there's not much more we could say about it. Like,
I mean, that's just the thing, is like my takeaway from that is, and
yeah, like, But anyway, so funny thing is, so there was a cool red carpet video that went viral of Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen being interviewed, where they kind of defended the prequels. And I do find, like, it's funny because I was talking to some people yesterday out on when I was drinking about Star Wars, and to the younger generation that's like 10 years younger than us, that grew up with the prequels, they love the prequels unironically, and it's so it's interesting.
Love the prequels unironically. I always have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm mixed on them, but it'll be interesting to see how Obi-Wan does, because there is a whole generation that did grow up with those movies, and they're kind of beloved to them now. And they're really excited about Hayden Christensen coming back. They don't consider him, we thought we kind of criticized him when the movie came out, but they think he's great, and they can see through that, and it's just a different mentality now. So I thought that was interesting. The conversation has totally pivoted around those movies.
And it was interesting seeing, just McGregor and Christensen talking about it. And I think there's got to be some vindication for them, because McGregor was like, the movies were so heavily criticized at the time, even though they made mountains of money, but critically they were kind of torn apart.
They were.
And, Christensen took almost as much shit as Jake Lloyd for, and then
I mean, Star Wars fans are really, like, especially that first generation of fans, they were really cruel, and they treated people badly, and they took it very personally. Like, it was almost like it was like some kind of weird brainwash thing when that movie came out. Like, there's a whole generation of guys that are like 10 years older than us too, that were like the first generation fans that took those movies so personally and got so offended because of whatever they didn't like, and they were just so vicious towards, and I feel like the newer generation is not quite as bad, but they're the same ones that are like attacking, Kelly, what's her face, Kelly from Kelly Tran from it's those same people. Like, they this bully mentality in some of the fans that it's crazy, so there's
definitely, I mean, really, and you see it in all of these rabid fan bases. You see it in the Snyder fan base, you see it in the Star Wars fan base,
100%. Too much of
the Marvel fan base. These people that get so invested in this stuff that it becomes their life. And they start to take it as like personal if there's anything that seems to offend their sensibilities. But I'm somebody, I've always loved the prequels. I know the flaws of the movies. Like, I spot the same flaws that other people do. I'm just way more forgiving because the cool stuff outweighs the bad stuff for me in the prequels. And by that token, I love them. I love them. I love Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan. I don't love Christensen's performance in the prequels. I think really what came down to is that George Lucas is a phenomenal technical director.
Yeah, he's not a great director of actors. I mean, Natalie Portman's not great in those movies either. I mean,
and and it's like when you watch them, especially in Revenge of the Sith, for me, I'm like, I'll bet you there is like a near Oscar caliber performance waiting in the wings with Natalie Portman in that movie, but she didn't have a director to guide her to that.
Yeah.
Lucas wrote the words. He gave her the words. He gave her minimal direction. And it's not like this is a person that's been, that's won an Oscar. This is a person that's, gone out and done numerous performances that have shown her weight as an actress. And you see it, and it feels very raw, like almost unrehearsed in the prequels. It's kind of like Lucas shot a rehearsal, and that's what made it the movie. Not a finished, polished.
And I think that the difference is, somebody like McGregor, I think he's just such a good actor that he's kind of able to make sense of anything.
Oh, totally. And he's the most convincing. Him and Liam Neeson are the two most convincing actors.
One of the things that I always noticed about the prequels that was always kind of like this key of acting was in Attack of the Clones. I felt that there was a scene where Jar Jar shows up, and then Hayden Christensen looks at Jar Jar, and it looks like he's looking at a tennis ball when you look at his eyes. Whereas Ewan McGregor looks at Jar Jar, he's looking at somebody that's alive. And that's the difference, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
Level.
It's tough, and and Ewan McGregor talks about that in that video of from their press thing, where he's like, so much of it we shot on green screen, and it was like, he's like acting against that. He was like, it was something that we it was unheard of at the time. And he's right. It was very much a totally new experience for them. And now, it's like the technology has evolved. Like you've seen what they do for The Mandalorian and for Boba Fett, where they shoot on these immersive screens rather than a green screen. They actually create the environment on a screen, which is pretty fascinating. Yeah. Even though I think sometimes it does deter from a real life location. So another thing that I thought was interesting was Christensen was talking to Total Film and had mentioned that, he had to really pack on some weight and fill out to fit into the Vader outfit. And he mentioned that, the action scenes in Obi-Wan are going to be more akin to the prequels, which is kind of that, more polished and, frenetic kind of action, that energetic lightsaber duels, not quite like the original trilogy. Let's just be honest, the lightsaber duels, they were more about like power rather than finesse. They weren't exactly like super. Which
I kind of like though. Like it's kind of like that's I mean, I don't know. It depends in terms of like lightsaber duels. I always found, I'm getting really geeky here, but I love the fights in the original trilogy. But then there's the one that I really like in the prequels. It's Darth Maul versus Obi-Wan. Yeah, I think that's one of the best action scenes. But then otherwise, I don't really remember much about the lightsaber duels. Like I wasn't that impressed when Yoda came around and started because it didn't feel.
Oh man, I was. It was awesome.
I didn't give a fuck.
I love that shit. I love Attack of the Clones. I love all those fucking movies. But I think that's cool. I think that's, and then he went on to say that, this is going to be Vader in his prime during Obi-Wan, which makes sense. This is going to be Vader when he's, in top form, kind of, fucking shit up. And we got like a little taste of that in Rogue One. And I think this is going to see it. We'll finally see Vader in, where he's not just kind of using the Force as his means of power. So I'm excited for that. I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, that's really all I had on the agenda for this week. I had quite a bit to talk about for what we're watching, but you also wanted to elaborate some more on Top Gun Maverick now that your review is out. So why don't you hit us with your Top Gun Maverick thoughts?
Well, I mean, I did put my review up this week, and I really liked it, and the more I thought about it, the more I liked it too, and it's cool to see like all the positive reviews. Like it feels that people really like this movie because it is like an old school blockbuster, like the kinds that you used to get in the 80s and 90s. Like the only thing that didn't entirely work for me was the romantic subplot with Jennifer Connelly, because I felt that the movie was
Penny Benjamin.
Well, because it really kind of like it's all focused on the relationship between Rooster and which is Miles Teller's character and Maverick, which makes sense. I really enjoyed it, and I like the action, but I like that it was a lower key, Tom Cruise movie. It feels like the kind of movie I wish Tom Cruise made more of.
Interesting.
And I think Krasinski was a great choice because I really liked Only the Brave, and it's similar in some ways to If Only the Brave like had cost $100 million more. It's like that, and I really did like it. It's better than it's funny because I always think of like Days of Thunder as like the unofficial Top Gun 2, but it feels like of that vein, you know?
Yeah, I love Days. I just watched Days of Thunder again. I talked about it last time.
I'm gonna watch it again.
Days of Thunder.
I think Days of Thunder.
So fucking good.
Great movie.
So you know what? I almost texted you this. So this week, for Screen Rant, I'm doing a ranking of all of Tony Scott's movies that I kind of saved to debut during when Top Gun Maverick came out. So I was curious. I meant to text you. Does Top Gun Maverick have any kind of nod to Tony Scott?
Oh, I think so. I think it's dedicated to him. I'm not positive though. I can't really remember. I'm pretty sure it is though.
Yeah, I was wondering about.
I thought it was dedicated to him and to Don Simpson's name is still on it. Like it says Don Simpson producer, you know, and I think that Tony Scott did get a like a big tribute, and it's done in his style, kind of.
I mean, because Tony originally was going to direct the sequel before he died. Like he was talking about it, doing a sequel for a longest time, but it just never happened. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Top Gun. I have tickets. I'm all set.
When are you going?
26th, I think. I was trying to do like one of those. They had the early fan screenings like on the 24th, but of course it's not coming to Alaska. So boo hoo.
Oh, well, and they're also showing the original Top Gun too, right? Like that, like I think for some of these screenings. I've seen it. Have you ever seen Top Gun in theaters?
Yeah, when I was a kid, when it came out.
Oh, I saw it. I've seen it a couple times since then in theaters because they re-release it every now and then.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to take my son to see it.
I went to see it twice on IMAX when it got re-released that way, and it was great on IMAX. And I saw it regular theatrically, and it was awesome.
I'd love to go see it in IMAX.
It's a great movie to watch in theaters. It really is because it's explosive, you know.
Yeah,
and it's weird because I always loved it, but I never got what a big screen experience it is. And then I think that's what's great about Top Gun Maverick. It's very much in that vein.
Yeah. If I can find that, if they do that, I'll take my kid because he loves Top Gun. My son loves Top Gun. It's funny. I was
for young boys. I mean, Top Gun it's got the camaraderie of like the fellas and, fucking plans.
Yeah. It's funny. So I was leaving the gym yesterday and I have a Top Gun t-shirt and I was wearing it yesterday and I put it on and there was a guy that was getting ready to leave and he's like, he saw my shirt and he's like, I hear the new movie's going to be pretty good. I was like, yeah, the reviews are really good. It sounded like it's going to be a good one. And we chatted for a minute and he was saying how he saw the original when he was like 11 and 86. Yeah. And he was talking about it. And to me,
it was the first movie I consciously remember watching because I remember specifically the circumstances surrounding it because it was on First Choice, the Canadian version of HBO at Christmas time of like 87, I think. And I was like 5 at the time or 6. And I remember I gotten my first like blank cassette tape to record stuff on. It was gonna be my tape for my movies. And I remember taping shit on it. And I was really excited. And I had like the 2 movies I remember on it, I had my 2 favorite movies. Was Top Gun was the first movie on the tape, and Howard the Duck was the second movie on the tape. And those are the ones
double feature you never knew you wanted.
And those were the ones that I just watched over and over and over again.
That's funny as shit. Yeah. But Top Gun it's such a tremendous cultural impact that cannot be denied.
And I mean, Top Gun, I would literally watch Top Gun as a kid. It would end and I would rewind the tape and watch it again. Top Gun. And I had the biggest, like and that movie made me like, as a kid, like I always thought Tom Cruise was like the older brother I wanted. Like I watched all of his movies. Like I loved them all. I mean, I loved Rain Man as a kid.
My mom took us to see Rain Man in the theater. I loved
Rain Man. I thought it was badass when I was a kid. I thought it was great. I loved the song. My grandma and your grandma sitting by the fire with the cars. I thought that was great. I loved fucking Cocktail so much. That's how I learned about suicide. Watching Cocktail, because Brian Brown kills himself at the end. I'm like, what happened? And he's like, well, he took his own life. And my parents told me all about it. And then I was sad. And then I loved Days of Thunder. Fuck, Days of Thunder I loved as well. Cocktail was one of my favorites, though. I used to have juice and I would throw it around like flair bartending. Because I just thought he was the coolest guy ever, Tom Cruise. That was the thing. Like when I was a kid, I thought, cool, Tom Cruise, cool.
Like
Money. I loved Color of Money as a kid too. Another one that's not necessarily a kid's movie. I thought Color of Money, I thought was badass when I was a kid with his shirt.
I think Color of Money is the only one that I didn't really get into as a kid.
The only one I didn't get into when I was a kid was Risky Business. That one I wasn't allowed to watch.
And see, Risky Business was my first Tom Cruise movie. I watched it way too young, and
I got into Risky Business as I got older. Like, it was on TV, and I never really got it at the time. But then, like, I've come around to really liking Risky Business in recent years.
I love everything about Risky Business.
Yeah, it's a cool, like, fucking slick movie too. And there was a really good appreciation of it recently by Karina Longworth on You Must Remember This on her podcast. She did about erotic 80s, and it was a pretty interesting appreciation of it.
Yeah, I feel like Risky Business kind of shaped me sexually in a fucked up way, like way too early, where I was just like, what the fuck am I seeing? You know, like Rebecca De Mornay showing up at his house, and like the wind blows the door open and he's like lifting up her dress. And I'm like, I don't know, fucking like 7 or 8 watching this movie. And I'm like, what?
I wasn't allowed to watch Risky Business unedited, but when it came on like A&E, like Arts and I was allowed to watch it then when it was cut for TV. So I watched the cut for TV.
You could do Risky Business edited.
Yeah, it was fine. I mean, there's not a ton of swearing in it and stuff. There's a little bit, and there's the nudity. You can work around it a little bit, but
yeah,
it was.
And there's not a lot, but there's not a lot of nudity.
I didn't get that they were prostitutes. Like, it was
the
same.
As a kid, I didn't understand that either.
It was the same thing when I saw a Night Shift really young because I loved Michael Keaton, and my dad rented it for me one day, and I was like 5 years old, and I loved it. It was Batman and the Fonz. So I was like super psyched to see it. It was even before he was Batman. I loved him from like Dream Team and stuff like that. And then I was just watching. I had no idea that they were all prostitutes. I just thought they were having a party.
It's the same thing like Bachelor Party. You know, you see these movies far too young, and you're just like, I don't.
Oh, Bachelor Party. I mean, yeah.
I don't know what's going on, but
Bachelor Party's fun. That was another one though that I saw on TV when I was a kid. So they didn't have the donkey doing lines of coke. That was pretty funny.
Like, that is hysterical. You think about how today, like how like there's like this attack on comedy, you know, because everybody's offended. Like,
well, that movie would not.
Can't we have a movie where a donkey does lines of coke? That's fucking hysterical.
I love when they come into the bachelor party. It's like, welcome to my bachelor party. Prostitutes to the right, drugs to the left.
I mean, that's funny shit. That's fucking funny shit.
I loved Dragnet as well. That was one of my favorites as a kid. There's that scene where they're going to the pagan ritual and there's all the drugs.
Oh, yeah.
And then like you just see like Tom Hanks like, well, yeah, he's taking them all and he's putting them all in this thing. And then they go to Dan Aykroyd. He's like, oh, I had a big lunch. the snake attacks him, and he's just pouring drugs down the snake's mouth. He's the tail.
I used to love Dragnet.
They're trying to convince the police captain that they're telling the truth, and then he goes, and then the drugs end up all over his desk. A great movie.
Hey, keep talking. I'm going to refill my coffee. I'm just going to walk right over here. I'll be right back. Keep talking. Tell me more. Chris, what else are you watching this week?
Mm-hmm. I have stuff to do. I'm gonna wait until you get back. You can just cut this out.
How dare you? How could you not want this?
You buy those cold brews and you just put them in your fridge, eh?
So this is what I do. This is my secret.
Yeah.
Because I'm addicted.
Because they sell them here. You can get them. Like I get jugs.
You can buy them you can buy them like they're not
at a grocery store. Yeah.
So what I do is I'll go and I buy two. I'll buy two venti cold brews, black with no ice.
Yeah.
And so I can turn those 2 into 4. So I can make those stretch because they fill when it has ice in it. The amount of coffee that they put in these is about to here. So if I buy 2 and then I let them and I fill them up and they're filled up to the top without ice, that's basically 2 coffees right there. Because I put my own ice in, I put my own cream and sugar and whatever. So I can just make it stretch. And it's basically how I can afford to keep my.
I've started drinking lactose-free milk.
Why
One
is
of the
that?
things about getting, I have a
You lactose
mild lactose intolerance. Mild. My mom is too, and my father is as well. So it's like mild lactose intolerance, I think.
It doesn't really taste
And
any.
actually it works. I feel better actually now that I'm not drinking anymore. But anyway, all right. So yeah, back to what we were
Milk for your
watching.
coffee?
I
You
drink, but
milk?
because I not only that, but I like to have I like cereal with milk in it. You know, I
Okay.
like to have that every once in a while.
Okay.
And I would get like really bad like when I would eat that. You know.
I mean, that's literally the only time I ever use milk is if I have cereal at this point.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
every
Well,
now
I
and
like
again, a recipe will call for it.
I like that a few times a week. If it's milk in a recipe, I'm usually fine using whatever, like even heavy cream or whatever, because there's not too much of it in it. It's a small amount.
Very small amount.
And I'm okay with cheeses as long as it's not too much. But with the big milk in the cereal, you put quite a bit in. So
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, that's pretty much. I don't drink a glass of milk.
Yeah, Laura doesn't like milk, but she's fine with it. But you take it in your coffee sometimes if I make a latte. Yeah. All right. So yeah, let's get back to what we're watching. So what else did you watch?
Well, what else did you watch? Did you watch anything else?
Well, yeah. Okay. So yeah, I haven't watched too many in the way of movies. Like, okay, I saw Downton Abbey, A New Era.
Oh God.
I mean, I like Downton Abbey though. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I find it very pleasant to watch. Laura fucking hates, but I find it very pleasant to watch. Like, there's something about it. And the movie is like very uneventful. Not much happens. I wish it was longer. I was just watching it. Wow. I was very relaxed watching it. I was having a great time, you know, and it was just like, it's perfect for me. And it's, you know, it's funny how that's the movie my mom wants to see the most, right? She's like, oh, when's Downton Abbey coming out? And I'm like, you know, and she's like going to risk COVID. And she's so paranoid about COVID to go see Downton Abbey.
I'm going to
anyway,
COVID or for Downton Abbey.
I'm probably going to take her when my dad gets his operation. I'm probably going to take her to see Downton Abbey because she'll be thrilled. But then anyway, so I saw that and I saw Men, the Alex Garland. A more A24 movie has never been made. It is fucking weird. Even by Alex Garland standards, and like it's not even like, I mean, Annihilation is like super straightforward compared to this movie. I can't even really explain it. So Jessie Buckley, her boyfriend commits suicide in this fucked up way, and she goes to recover by renting like this Airbnb in this country manor in this village, and all of the men in the village are played by Rory Kinnear.
Yeah. You see that in the trailers. It's just weird,
and they're just fucking strange. And stuff starts to happen, but it's like, it's just kind of, you know, it's an interesting movie.
I mean, as soon as I saw the apples falling from the tree, I was like, okay, Alex Garland, we'll let you have
a great score though, because he keeps working with it's the new guy Ben Salisbury and the other person who did that's Northman as well, and they're really good composers and has like a really good score. And I think Buckley's a really good actress. I like her, and I like Kinnear as well. Like, I think it was extremely well cast, but it was also very clearly a COVID movie because, you know, it's like two actors and they probably just had crewmen wearing like green shit on their face so they could just plug in Kinnear's face, and it's not always done realistically. You know, when he's supposed to be a child, it looks really bad, but then when he's supposed to be like, you know, just older or something, he's kind of got like the kind of face, and with wigs and stuff you can kind of make him look different. So
right,
but it was good. But I mean, I don't know, I mean, it's not, definitely not for everyone. But then I've been watching Winning Time on HBO Max, the Lakers show, which I really like. It's really good. It's well done. It's very provocative for an HBO show. Well, and it's so funny to see Riley is so well cast in the part. And I know that Farrell was pissed off because he really wanted to play Jerry Buss, but I don't think he would have been as good in it. You know, because you really, Riley, you know, he's got to be kind of like this leering scumbag, but also kind of likable. You kind of have to like him too. Like, and I think that Riley can do that, you know, where you're like, oh yeah, he's cool, you know, and it's like, it's well done. And the actors who are playing the basketball players are really good. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, though, I read him regularly. He's pissed off about it because there's a scene in the pilot where you see Kareem Abdul-Jabbar working on Airplane, and the kid who is in it with him asks him for an autograph, and he says, "Fuck off, kid." Jabbar said he never fucking did that ever. He said he would never tell a kid to go fuck himself. But then other people in the books are saying that, oh no, he would have, and he hates it. But I like it a lot. It's really compelling and very well cast. And then Adrian Brody's actually really good in it as Pat Riley, which is, I'm not usually a big Adrian Brody fan, but I feel like I'm coming around to him now, like now that he's doing TV and stuff, and he's really good as Pat Riley, who is, the famous coach with the slick back hair and the Armani. And it's his early days. And Jillian Jacobs is his wife, but it's a pretty small role. And then Tracy Letts is in it, who's really good. And Jason Segel, like it's just an amazing cast.
That's like a free cast. The problem that I have with it is that I don't give a fuck about basketball.
Neither do I, though. Neither do I. But it's not really about basketball, though. It's more about the era and about shit that's going on, so it's in that regards, like, I mean, Laura and I don't care about basketball either, but we both
like, I don't think I watched basketball. The last time I watched it was when I lived in Chicago during the Bulls.
Yeah, I don't either, but I do find it. I don't find the sport interesting, but I find some of the stories interesting about what was going on behind the scenes. So like that, like it did make me want to learn more about the Lakers in the Showtime era, and it starts with Magic Johnson getting his HIV diagnosis. I mean, I remember how huge that story was.
Yeah, I remember that too. Yeah.
And it was, and he's had a happy ending, I think, in his life. He's done a lot of good for people. And but I find it quite an interesting show. But then I watched this other show that's fucking mental. We watched a docu-series on the Jonestown massacre, because I got AMC
Plus. Yeah,
Jonestown. It has like Sundance Now, and so I've been paying for it for a year without knowing, because I have Shudder. Shudder is actually, it's cheaper to get AMC Plus, and it includes Shudder. But it has all these great doc shows, and I was the Jonestown one. You mean, Jim Jones and Guyana?
Oh yeah, I know the Jonestown.
Yeah,
I know the Jonestown stuff. I know a lot about cults and shit. I've studied it for the book.
Yeah, and I've been a member of several and a leader of others. And Laura knew about it too. So we didn't go in with zero knowledge, but it was just, it's a very compelling story. It's like over 900 people died, and they interview the survivors and like his sons, and a lot of them willingly drank the Kool-Aid, which wasn't even Kool-Aid. It was some knockoff brand called Flavor Aid.
Yeah.
And it's produced by DiCaprio. And apparently DiCaprio wants to play Jim Jones.
He's supposed to be playing him. And
he would be really good in that role. That's like an Oscar contender role.
Yeah. It's a fascinating story. I find all those stories, about these kind of cult leader figures, L. Ron Hubbard, as it was portrayed.
L. Ron, that one's still going though. It's crazy, and it's still happening with what's his face, Ben Mendelsohn, because he looks like Ben Mendelsohn. David Miscavige.
Oh yeah,
it's still going on, and there's still people that are members, and like Elizabeth Moss is a fucking Scientologist, and nobody mentions that. Nobody likes to talk about that because it's not very empowering. And it's just like it's and Tom Cruise, it's still going on, and these cults, it's a cult. It is essential. It is a cult. The cults have changed now, though. Like, it's that show we were watching, Lula Rich, where it's almost like business oriented instead of religion oriented, and it's easy to recruit people into a cult. I mean, like, fucking Twitter is a cult in a lot of ways. And like, I would say even like the ultra woke cancel culture, that's all cult behavior. Like,
Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is.
So it still goes on. A couple people, charismatic people, can still win a bunch of people over. But the disturbing thing about Jonestown is that so many of them died willingly, not everybody, but so many of them did. And like, it would be a really good movie though. Like, and knowing DiCaprio, it's going to be somebody like Scorsese doing it. So it'll probably be really good. Yeah,
I think I wrote the story of his announcement, but I can't remember if they had I don't think they have a director yet.
They have a writer. Scott Rosenberg is a great writer, but then it's funny. I always thought Michael Shannon would have been good, but then he did the Waco thing. And did you ever see Waco, the limited series?
So I actually read the book, and then I started watching the miniseries, and I never finished it.
I thought the miniseries is really good because Kittich is excellent in that as David Koresh. Like, I was never a huge Kittich fan before, even though I liked John Carter of Mars, but I remember watching that and I was like, oh, he's like actually a really fucking good actor.
Yeah, and I like Taylor Kitsch. I love him in Lone Survivor. I think that's who he plays Michael Murphy.
Waco, and Michael Shannon was the FBI agent that was the negotiator, and Shannon is producing a follow-up series about the trials, afterwards.
Oh, really?
That's
Oh,
how the FBI like attacked and stuff like that, and like the whole reaction. And so that'll be really cool to see. And like Leguizamo's coming back, so
yeah. Waco is a fascinating story in itself, and Koresh's story is. I mean, again, just another cult leader thing.
if they're gonna do one though, the cult Heaven's Gate cult, if they ever do that, that'd be a great one for Will Ferrell, because I remember he used to play that guy on SNL.
Did he? I don't
Yeah,
remember.
Heaven's Gate, because you remember they all cut their dicks off.
Right? Yeah. Oh God.
And it was this thing. It was like live from outer space, leader of the Heaven's Gate cult. You were right. And then you just see Will Ferrell's like, yeah, and you know what? It feels pretty good. And it's like, but how about the whole ritualistic cutting off of the genitals? Because yeah, it turned out that was unnecessary. The aliens just like, what were you thinking? Oops.
That's funny as shit.
The eyes wide open. They're like, hi. Hi, how are you?
Hi. I'm gonna have to look those up. That's funny as shit.
But yeah, it was the Jonestown one. If you want to watch, man, it's pretty compelling.
You say that's on AMC Plus?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not in here. It is. I think so. I think it was an AMC doc, or it was Sundance now.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have AMC.
But it's fucked because you see like the dead bodies and shit, and like, it was creepy, but it was interesting to watch.
Gruesome.
Yeah. How about you? What have you been watching?
So I've been watching The Offer on Paramount Plus, which I really enjoy.
We finally got that here. It took a while, but we finally got it. I'm gonna probably watch it at some point.
You know, I think you'll enjoy it. Here's the thing about The Offer is it's not going to change your perspective. It's not going to like it's not so dramatic and so heavy that it's that meaningful. It's really just fun to watch the making of this movie, like how it came together. It's like a revisit. Like it's fun. It's not a weighty thing. It's not a, oh wow, like this is really deep. It's just like, oh, this is interesting. It's fun, kind of thing to watch. So I've been watching The Offer, but as I watch it, I get more and more. I kept getting like the Jones to watch The Godfather. So I ended up watching the whole fucking trilogy.
Yeah, I did that last year, and then I bought The Godfather so many fucking times. So I own, and you can never buy one of them. You have to buy all of them, right? So I had bought it on DVD, then I bought them on Blu-ray, I think twice, and then I just fucking bought the 4Ks as well, like the 4K.
Yeah, boy.
Really,
so
but it's great.
They have them on Paramount Plus. They have all the movies on Paramount.
Yeah,
Plus.
I know. And I watched them on Amazon last year, even though I owned them. They were in the other room. But I bought the 4Ks because the new 4K transfers are really nice. But yeah, we watched Laura had never seen them, so we watched all three, and we liked. I mean, even 3. The only thing is, it's like Sofia Coppola is really bad in part 3, though.
This was my takeaway. I love 1 and 2. I actually think I love 1 the best. That used to be I like 2 the best.
I go back and forth. It really depends on whichever one I watched last. And I always watch them together. I watch 1 and I'm like, fuck yeah, 1's the best. Then I watch 2. I'm like, no way, 2's the best.
Yeah. I think like when they go to Cuba in 2, it kind of like takes it down a notch, and it kind of, I'm not really into that whole part of the story, but 1 really stands out for me. But 3, I watched the new version. First time I watched the Coda version.
It's a bit easier to take because it's shorter, but I do like the long.
It's not good. Godfather 3 is not good.
Really?
It's actually quite bad. As far as I'm concerned, I really did not like it. When you compare it up to 1 and 2, it doesn't even come close.
No, and that's the problem when you watch the 3 of them together, as one is usually to do. It's that it plummets the quality, but then tremendously plummets. But I do find that there are a lot of things that I like about part 3. Like I think Andy Garcia is great in it.
Andy Garcia is great.
And I think Pacino is great in it too. Although his Michael Corleone doesn't feel like the Michael Corleone of the first 2 movies, though. I will admit that
at all. And that's
another because it's a different style of Pacino performance when he started to ham it up a bit,
Exactly. And he had grown so much as an actor. And I think that he kind of lost the pulse of who Michael Corleone was. It was kind of like
Michael Corleone's a quiet guy.
Yeah, he's like this quiet, menacing character that's when he speaks, it's very succinct, right? Like he's not a chatty guy. And in Godfather 3, he's nonstop, just fucking chatty. And you're like, and he's got I don't know why the choice was to do this fucking flat top haircut. It does not. It just doesn't make sense.
I always thought he looked cool in that movie, actually, with the hair, but it was
But
just
it doesn't make sense. Why would he have that hairstyle? It just doesn't make sense.
It is very much though like Pacino, like later era Pacino, where he's like, it's not what I wanted.
Yeah, exactly. And then what really took me out, and yes, Sofia Coppola is terrible in it. She's a great director.
Awful. Like
terrible
to
actor.
the point that like, oh, she can't even pronounce the T in Vincent. Vincent.
And she's
Vincent.
like, Dad,
I love him. Daddy. Daddy.
Dad. You're just
Daddy.
like, oh my God.
Vincent. I love him. That's
all the love to Sophia.
Laura likes to do Sofia Coppola. Vincent. Daddy. Daddy.
Dad.
Daddy. Like a valley girl.
So yeah, exactly. Yeah, just terrible.
But there are things about it that I like. There's some really good set pieces, like the helicopter attack on the Dons is really cool, and I like the whole.
Right. I feel like all of that should have been far more polished. Like I'm like, this is Coppola. This guy did a fucking Apocalypse Now.
I do have a fondness for it. I mean, it's later Coppola, but Godfather 1 and 2. I mean, Godfather. I mean, the thing is, like, Godfather is probably the shortest 3-hour movie ever made. Because it goes by like that. And it
does, and it pulls you in.
The big problem too with Godfather 3 is that they didn't pay the money they needed to get Duvall back as Tom Hagen.
Is that why he wasn't in it?
Yeah, because they didn't want to pay him, and the thing is, like, they got fucking George Hamilton instead, and they cut down
obnoxious in it. It's like,
and they cut the role down so much that it needed that. It needed Tom Hagen, and they're just like, oh, he's dead, and it's kind of like, oh fuck, really, like that's so unceremonious. Where Duvall is still around and still a great actor.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and they just like have his. They're like, oh, his son is going to seminary or whatever, and it's just kind of like, okay. But yeah, I don't feel like they focused on the aspects that needed to be focused on, and I feel like the violence, like at the opera thing, I just don't feel like it came together in a way that was like really convincing. I thought it was like kind of just shoddily done. And then what really took me out, what really just fucking, I was like, oh God, like eye roll to the fucking heavens, was when after Sofia Coppola gets shot and Pacino's like, like spit dribbling down his face. Yeah. And then Talia Shire does the thing where she puts the veil, the hood over and crosses it over, just like in the play. And I was like, oh my fucking God, Coppola.
Yeah.
Like, did you have to do that? Because doing that was like, it's like when someone explains, you like, get it? See the symbolism? And it's like,
I know.
So dumb.
I feel the same way. But anyway, getting back to the first two Godfathers, though, I mean, I do love both of those movies, though. Brando is so great in it,
Brando's great, and again, this ties back to The Offer, where it's fun. It's fun because they have people playing Brando. They have people playing.
But the book is not great though. The Godfather book is like pulp fucking dime store.
But it was huge. It was a huge book when it was released. I didn't read it, but I mean, it was huge when it was released.
It's the same thing. Like Jaws isn't a very good book either. I think sometimes the best movies get made out of the shittiest books, and elevated. I mean, absolutely. Premise is there.
The interpretation, there's a lot that gets either lost or gained in the interpretation, for sure. So anyways, I love the Godfather, the first two Godfathers. I love. Part 3 I really don't love. It's got its moments. There's definitely some cool moments, but they don't punctuate those enough, and there's too much like just silly shit that I did not care for. The other thing I watched this week, which I watched with Maria, was Candy on Hulu. And
is it? I've been meaning to watch that. There's 2 shows about that coming out, eh?
Yeah, there's one with Elizabeth Olsen that's coming to HBO. Yeah. But I feel like, so we watched Candy and we enjoyed it. It's 5 episodes. Jessica Biel's really good as Candy. And, like all the actors are pretty good. Like Pablo Schreiber as Betty Gore's husband, Alan Gore. And then Melanie Linsky as Betty Gore, who's the woman that gets murdered. It's well done, but what I found was that it's more whimsical. It was kind of like To Die For is what it reminded me of in terms of like a true crime thing where it's like, you're not quite sure if it's a comedy or if it's like a dark story or if it's some mixture of the two. And it's kind of playful in that way. And then they try to punctuate the horror of it. And they do show like some pretty graphic stuff in terms of like the murder itself. but I felt like it was just a little too whimsical by the time it was over. And I was like, it's almost like winking to the audience. And I'm very curious to see what they do with the Elizabeth Olsen version, and to see if that's going to be in the same vein. But it really is a fascinating story. And there's a lot of stuff that makes the story that much more compelling, especially the Friday the 13th aspect. So when Betty Gore was murdered, so if you don't know the story, Candy Montgomery, was part of this like small Texas town in the 1980s, in 1980, decides she wants to have an affair. And so she has an affair with Pablo Schreiber, with Alan Gore. And she's also friends with his wife, Betty. And they have the affair, it goes on for a while. And then they end up breaking it off. But Betty Gore gets wind of it regardless and confronts her. And then suddenly Betty Gore is dead, murdered with an axe.
Oh boy.
Things. Hit with 41 strikes with an axe on a human being. So you can imagine the devastation that it does to a person. So that's the story. And there's these connections, like these Friday the 13th connections that are weird. Like the house is the 13th on the row. It happened on a Friday the 13th.
Oh, so that's why they released it around Friday the 13th.
Exactly. And the day that it happened was the same day that the first Friday the 13th movie was released in theaters. And when Betty Gore was killed, she had the newspaper open to The Shining, which had, is a famous axe murder movie. And then it's an axe murder. It's one of those things where you're like, that's a lot of fucking similarities to Friday the 13th that just can't be ignored. So it's very strange. So those aspects are fascinating and interesting. And it's well acted. It's like everybody does a good job. I found it to be, it struggled to find kind of the tone, like it's just kind of back and forth, but it was an interesting watch. And Hulu's been kind of like really leaning into these shows. Like they have The Girl from Plainville, they had Pam and Tommy, and these kind of like recreations of real events. And I guess people are watching them because they keep making them. So, but it was pretty good. It was, it was interesting. I don't regret watching it, but I'm very curious to see if the Olsen version is better. Mm-hmm. So that's it. That's all I've watched. I didn't watch anything else. I don't have time. I have Uncharted. They sent me Uncharted, but I have not watched it yet. So see if it's going to be worth a shit. I don't know.
I didn't like it.
It's probably going to be I'm expecting it to just be whatever. Shall we do, it looks like we got a few questions, not a lot. You want to do a couple questions, wrap it up?
Yeah. Let's
see here. From Shemp, in honor of him getting a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, what is the best James Hong performance / movie?
Oh, I would say probably still Big Trouble in Little China. I mean, that's what I'm thinking of.
I mean, I'm just not that familiar with all of his work before that. So, I guess that's my own, just lack of knowledge. But Big Trouble in Little China is classic, man. As Lo Pan, fuck. This is great. I mean, that's a classic thing. And who doesn't love that? It's the best. Matt Hicks, any news on the new Predator movie? Haven't seen much, and it's been many months since we all heard your favorite line from Predator 2. Fuck, which ones are my favorite? Want some candy?
Want some candy?
Take it. There's like so many lines from Predator 2. Yeah. And Scorpio, he's ready. That's one of my favorite. I quote that movie like endlessly. I haven't heard anything about Prey, which is the new Predator movie, other than like the synopsis that they put out. I don't know. I haven't heard shit about it. I know it's releasing on Hulu, which I'm not sure if that's a good thing, to be honest. So it's hard to say. It's hard to say what that's going to be. But I haven't heard, I don't hear any word on the street as to like what it's going to be or what it is or anything. So I have no idea. It looks like that's all the questions we got this week, Chris.
Well, that's fine. I got to run anyway. So
what?
Yeah.
What?
Work never stops.
It never stops. So that's it for us. Thank you for joining us. I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you see some good movies, some good shows, and remember to love what you love. And we'll see you next time.